and welcome to Monday Morning Breakdown. John Murphy alongside Bills Insider Chris Brown. We do this every Monday on Facebook, on Twitter, and on YouTube. A chance for us to give you some of our observations about the Bills game the day before. Observations this week about a Buffalo victory, 13-12 win over the Tennessee Titans yesterday. I love that game, Chris. I know it wasn't a thing of beauty. You're not going to send it to the Pro Football Hall of Fame, but look. It was old-fashioned, rock'em sock'em defensive football. Both teams were very physical. I think the Bills won because they maybe out-physical the Titans just a little bit. Very physical game. I thought it went back and forth a little bit. Obviously, lead changes at the end. I just love that game a lot. And look, I know the Bills are not a finished product. They've got still have some offensive issues to work through, but I like the way they won that yesterday.
House money, house money, house money. Yeah, I mean, when you have a kicker like that and you can play rock-solid defense that can get you turnovers and you can run effectively enough, then, you know, you put yourself in a position to win. And granted, they're not going against the juggernaut of the AFC. You know, yes, the Titans came in
3-1.
Titans came in 3-1, but, you know, I think they're going to kind of come back to the rest of the pack here as we move along. And, you know, the script, as you said 2 weeks ago, the script on the season is not written yet. You know, they got that big win over Minnesota, and that kind of calmed the waters for a little bit. Granted, they didn't perform offensively against Green Bay, but they get a better performance, a winnable performance, you know, as far as the offensive side of the ball goes yesterday, and the defense kind of held them in to allow 13 points to stand up and be good enough for a victory.
Well, we're going to take a deeper look at the game, and we're going to get your comments on Facebook and on Twitter. We'll read some of those on the air. But let's start to look at the game by going to the end of the game. The Bills, for the first time in the game, trailed, right? They're down 12-10 with 4:43 left. All of their timeouts and a drive start at their 25-yard line. On 3rd and 3, they get a big third down pickup, and this is classic LeSean McCoy, right? Look at the moves. I bet there were double digits the number of times that the Tennessee Titan defenders were grasping at air. He picked up a big first down on 3rd and 3 that kind of got this series going, this drive downfield, Chris.
Right, and, you know, I think even more important was the way they ran the football on this drive. Yes, they did get that key third down conversion from Shady that we just saw, and then they got a 2nd and 6 conversion on a catch by Ray McCloud with a great kick-out block by Deion Dawkins to get him to the first down marker. But the way Chris Ivory ran on this drive is what stood out for me most of all. I mean, running people over. And I asked Shady after the game, the combination between he and Ivory, they are so different as far as runners. I've got to believe that is a very difficult adjustment for opposing defenses because, you know, you got to worry about this guy shaking you out of your shoes and then this guy's coming to run you over. That's hard for a defense to adjust to from one play to the next.
Bills have made a major upgrade with the addition of Ivory this year. Of course, Stephen Hauschka is doing what he does. 46-yard field goal as time expires. I watched him warm up. I watched him go through his entire routine with the yoga and the back and forth, as he walks up to the net and hits field goals, works on his plant, works on his delivery of the ball. He's unbelievable how he does that. And I asked him later, were you aware of the consequence of a kick and a missed kick? And he admitted, yes, I knew what was at stake, but I still go through my routine. He's very impressive.
And, I mean, under 50 yards, he's as automatic as they come. I think he's got the 3rd longest active streak of consecutive field goals under 50 yards in the league. And I think he's up to 19 or 20 now consecutively. So when you've got a guy like that you can turn to, you got to feel good about your chances in a tight game like that one was yesterday.
Let's get into 4-down territory here. A look at 4 aspects of yesterday's game. We start with first down, and we start with the return of LeSean McCoy. Going into the game, he had 21 carries in 3 games yesterday. Yesterday alone, 24 rushing attempts for 85 yards, a season high. The Bills ran it for 144 rushing yards overall in the game. McCoy was sensational, though, and I give him a lot of credit. He hung in there when things were bleak through the first 4 games of the season, missed the 1 game with the ribs, came back and played through that. He was classic LeSean McCoy, right? Great vision, great contact balance, and a really good move by LeSean McCoy to kind of juke defenders. He did an outstanding job of what he does best, right? I don't think the Tennessee Titans knew what they were looking at sometimes when McCoy had the ball in his hands.
Right, and even the thing that I was most pleased to see was even when the running game was not getting a very good yards per carry average, Daboll stuck with it and kept calling run plays even when they were only getting 2 yards a carry, 3 yards a carry, because even though they were only getting 2 and 3 yards, it was still setting up 3rd and short or 3rd and medium, not what we've seen the past couple of weeks, which was 3rd and 9, 3rd and 11, 3rd and 13, 3rd and 18. It kept them on schedule, so at least it kept that opposing defense thinking, this could be a run or a pass here, we don't know. And that helps an offense And I think it helped the guys on the offensive side of the ball feel like they didn't have a mountain to climb on third down.
And credit to Dable and the offensive strategists for this too, Chris. I think they showed a nice variety of offensive looks, different formations, different personnel packages. Look, I think we're witnessing a brand new offensive coordinator, a rookie quarterback, and an entire offense kind of getting used to each other. We're a third of the way into the season, 5 games in, and they were really fairly productive yesterday on the ground. I think that's a good sign. All right, we get to a second down now in our 4-down territory, and that's the quarterback, Josh Allen. The numbers don't look good at all for Josh Allen yesterday. He mentioned after the game he's more interested in the letters, as in W. Look, I thought Josh Allen was composed. I thought he showed command of what they wanted to do offensively, command of the game. He looked sensational on the game-winning scoring drive at the end of the game. Didn't throw it exceptionally well, but that's okay. And I do think, again, credit to the coaching staff, they tried to shorten the field for Josh Allen. I would say more than half of his pass attempts yesterday came on rollouts, right? They tried to shorten his reads.
Half-field reads.
Yeah.
Half-field reads.
Give him a little bit easier time with it.
For kind of the order of the day. And I thought that coming off of last week's game, when he might have been a little careless with the football, he kind of swung the other way. He was conservative with the football yesterday, almost maybe to the disappointment of Bills fans who want to see him chuck the ball around. I think he was far more conservative yesterday. That's probably due to some coaching and to the fact that the game plan was run the football, just mix in enough short passes to keep the defense honest and hope your defense can hold this Titans attack and you win the football game. So that's kind of the formula yesterday. It's going to be interesting to see what the formula is going forward. Do we continue with this kind of approach where you pound the football, hope for great defense, and only have Josh throw it 15 to 20 times a game?
Why not?
That's the formula that worked for Ben Roethlisberger and the Steelers. They had the #1 running offense in football that year, and they had the #1 defense in football. Is it good enough to keep winning this way? I think you deserve to keep going like this to find out if it's sustainable, because it's probably the best way for them to post W.
Look, 19 pass attempts, 82 yards passing. That's not,
it's got to be better than that.
Yeah, that's not long-term sustainable. That's not the recipe for long-term success. But for this team, for this year, for this stage of this year, I think it'll get better as the season goes along.
Well, that's
for the
what you're
stage
hoping.
of this year, I think that's pretty good. I think
that's what
they're
you're
looking
hoping.
for.
You're hoping that those yardage numbers creep up for Josh. He makes better decisions where you can give him a little more rope to maybe take a little more risk in the passing game, and then hopefully you have a better balance by the time you get to the second half of the year.
All right, our trip through 4-down territory takes us to third down, and what looked like a familiar script from the Buffalo defense. They did it last year, had success with takeaways last year. They did it in Minnesota, and they got early takeaways in this game. There's a 3-1 edge in turnovers in this game, forcing fumbles. They do that almost as well as anyone. This one recovered by Matt Milano. They were really, I thought, aggressive going after the strip and going after a number of plays in the game, Chris, and I thought it paid off big time for him yesterday.
And I think it was encouraging once again to see rookie defenders having a major hand in some of those takeaways yesterday. The first one by Tremaine Edmonds gets recovered by Matt Milano. The second takeaway is by another rookie defender, Taron Johnson, who jumps the inside pass route, gets inside Nick Johnson, and comes up with the interception for another takeaway. Both of those happening in Tennessee territory to give the offense short fields. And then the third takeaway, as we know, was by Shaq Lawson, coming from his defensive end position, coming backside in pursuit to force a fumble, which, doesn't sound like a big deal, but if you look at the ground that Shaq covered to come from the backside and punch that ball out, I mean, that's a hustle play there. That's flying to the football even though you're behind the play. And, he rips it out after the first tackler's there in Phillip Gaines, and they get another takeaway. I mean, that was the difference in the ball game. They end up +2 on the day. They're now +1 on the season. And that was the formula for a lot of their defensive success and winning football games last year. If they can get back to that on a consistent basis, 5 takeaways now in the last 2 weeks, they can stay on that streak. They're going to win some games that people don't expect them to.
Not luck either. I talked to Lawson about his strip yesterday in the locker room, and he said, we work on that. You've seen him. They put the ball in the crook of the arm of the tackling dummy, and they work on chopping it out. It's exactly what he did. It was big for him.
Jerry Hughes said that. Lorenzo Alexander. They all said we drill it all the time. It's paying off.
All right, now 4th down in our 4-down territory. Best player on the defense through the first third of the season, I think, without question, is Tre'Davious White. Quietly very good. He did it again yesterday. Targeted just once by the Tennessee passing attack yesterday. Allowed 0 receptions. Tre'Davious White has become a shutdown corner. He is regularly matching up with the opponent's best receiver, moving left and right all over the field, and makes plays. He was outstanding again yesterday. Almost had an interception a little bit later on down by the goal line on kind of a lofted pass that I think Mariota would like to have back. Tre'Davious just could not get his feet down, but he has been sensational through the first third of the season.
Yeah, it's almost like opponents don't even throw the ball to his side of the field. They throw it everywhere else.
Yeah.
And he didn't cover Corey Davis for the entire game, but for most of the game, he shadowed him, and wherever he went on the field, he followed him. When he didn't, that's when Corey Davis had receptions. They ended up with 4 catches for 49 yards, which isn't anything extraordinary. But when he's on the number one guy, it's like quarterbacks at this point almost say, well, I'm just going to go somewhere else with the ball because the guy's not going to be open.
That's the definition of a shutdown corner. All right, let's get to crowd noise. Your reaction to some of the
What
stuff we have said. So your reaction to what went on yesterday at the game. Some crowd noise from Facebook and Twitter. This one from Twitter. Jim says, Zay Jones is starting to shine for us. Did not have big numbers. Zay Jones is a gamer, though, and I see him blocking, a willing blocker in the run game very often, including yesterday.
Yeah.
There's got to be more production coming out of the wide receiver group, but I think Zay Jones is doing a pretty good job.
Yeah, and, Coach McDermott mentioned it this week. When we say we need to establish the line of scrimmage, he said that goes beyond the offensive lineman. It also involves receivers in the run game. You guys, he basically said you got to block downfield. And I think they made a concerted effort to do a better job of that. And I think that's why the running game had more success yesterday, because when they did get outside, at least from me watching the game, I noticed they were engaged, blocking downfield, and staying on those blocks to let running backs run by them.
All right, more crowd noise, and this next comment comes from Steve from Facebook. Steve says the O-line was much better in this win. I think there's been progress there, Chris. When I watched the game over this morning, I noted several big blocks by Vlad Dukas at his guard position. I think they're doing a pretty good job of getting better. And again, I go back to my point. Brand new offensive coordinator, rookie quarterback, pretty much a new offensive line. Yeah. There's a break-in period that I think we've suffered through the first 4 games, and it's starting to get a little bit better.
I think it's safe to say that with the daily growth mindset preaching that Coach McDermott does, that everything on offense is going to be better in November and December than it is in September and October. We're already starting to see signs of improvement there. Granted, Jarrell Casey might be the only exception yesterday, but that guy gives everybody a tough time. I mean, it's a 3-time Pro Bowl defensive tackle who doesn't get nearly the exposure that some of the other big market players do. He was causing problems. But beyond him, I think the men up front knew they were being called on the carpet after last week's game, and they stepped up to the challenge and delivered for the most part. So, in terms of establishing that line of scrimmage, there were several instances where I saw them move that line 2 yards down the field, and that is the key if you're going to run the football.
All right, the final piece of crowd noise today comes from a respondent who's wondering about the next week's game, Mark Ansel on Facebook. How are we going to handle Watson of the Texans? He's special. Is he? I think Clowney is special. I think J.J. Watt is special. I watched first half last night and watched Deshaun Watson. I don't know if he's special. I'm more concerned about the Houston Texans defense. In fact, I already started to project about next week's game being 12-10 or 15-13 or something like that.
And they had a low-scoring game last night against Dallas that they had to win in overtime. I think, what was it, 19-16, I think was the final. And so you're looking at a game that could be nip and tuck, much like the Bills game was this past Sunday. So you want to stand in there and grind. I think the Bills are capable of doing that. I think that's a game that appeals to the Bills, quite frankly, because they're not in a position to get into 33-30 shootouts. So if you want to play, stand in there and grind, run the football, play good defense, I think that's right up Buffalo's alley. The question is, are they going to get enough from their offense on the road, in a difficult environment to lift them to victory? Hopkins is, a problem, but Trey White, as we just mentioned, is a shutdown corner. So do the other offensive weapons have enough to kind of outlast the Bills in what I think is going to be a grinded-out game again this week?
That should be a great matchup to watch next week. Let's take a look at some of the other games from yesterday's where we get into our 2-minute offense, and we start with the Jets in the AFC East. A couple of weeks ago, Isaiah Crowell was in the doghouse for the New York Jets. Not yesterday, 77 yards on this touchdown run in the second quarter. Crowell with a career-high 219 yards, the best rushing day in Jets franchise history. Sam Darnold had a good day as well for the New York Jets as he finds Robbie Anderson for this touchdown. The Jets beat Denver 34-16. Denver looks bad, but that's a good win for New York.
Yeah, they're up to 2-3 now. The Bengals were in a 17-0 hole going into the fourth quarter, and then the defense came alive. They get this ricochet interception return for a touchdown by Michael Johnson, and then they get a strip sack on the next possession after they had already taken the lead, and this effectively put the game away for them. Another interception return for a touchdown. The Bengals beat the Dolphins, who fall to 3-2.
Browns at home against Baltimore. Cleveland had not won an AFC North game in 3 years, but they got a big win here. Overtime, big pass completion. Baker Mayfield finds Derek Willis 39-yard gain all the way down to the 43-yard line. A couple of plays later, the field goal by Greg Joseph in overtime. 37-yarder, and the Browns win at 12-9. The Browns unbeaten at home so far this year.
Odell Beckham had yet to receive a touchdown in the end zone, but he threw one to Saquon Barkley for 57 yards. This one going for a score here. Eli Manning would also find Barkley for a touchdown as he comes out of the backfield, gets down the sideline and into the end zone, but it would prove to not be enough for the Giants. Graham Gano playing spoiler with his 63-yard game winner as time expired.
Pat Mahomes continues to shine. He did it with his legs this time with a touchdown run in the first quarter. It was the Kansas City defense, which had been under fire, though. Big play here with the interception. Goes all the way back the other way for Chris Jones, and the Chiefs are 5-0.
Sunday Night Football, Texans and Cowboys in the Battle of Texas. And Kiki Cootie with an early touchdown on a shovel pass. Then in overtime, Watson finds DeAndre Hopkins, spins away from one defender, spins again, gets down into field goal range. And the game-winning field goal in overtime is good by Kymie Fairburn as Houston wins the Battle of Texas 19-16 in overtime.
Houston up next for the Buffalo Bills. They head to Houston next Sunday, the first of 2 consecutive road games. Look, I think the Bills now have established the template for how they win, Chris. It's takeaways, it's strong defense, and just enough offense, right? They capitalize on their takeaways, too. 10 points off takeaways yesterday. I think that's how they're going to win. I don't think they're probably not a double-digit team here this season, double-digit wins this year. But I think we see after yesterday and Minnesota, they've won 2 of their last 3 now. I think we see how they plan on winning games this year.
Right, and I think the challenge for Brian Daboll and the offensive staff is how are you going to dress it up differently each week? Yeah. I mean, opponents know this is probably the formula they're going to use. Can you do enough window dressing to make it look just different enough to keep that approach effective going forward?
We'll see how the week plays out for the Bills. They still have injuries at safety. We'll see if Micah Hyde is able to work back into the lineup this week, right? That's big for the Bills. They played without Micah Hyde and his backup yesterday.
Right.
Dean Marlowe had to start. And you see the schedule, 2 in a row on the road with the Bills after that, getting a big stretch of home games. I think they're set up pretty well. Are they ahead of schedule? I don't know about that. They're pretty much on schedule for how I thought they'd be.
I'd say closer to on schedule, but I think we are seeing the incremental advances on offense. The defense is getting back to the way they were playing last year. So those 2 things are encouraging. You know, and if Stephen Hauschka can keep kicking like he's kicking, they're going to win some close games like they did yesterday.
Hey, we'll talk more. Chris and I and Steve Tasker talk more about yesterday's 1-point victory coming up on our show. 1 Bills Live, 12 noon to 3 p.m. It'll be on MSG and on WGR Sports Radio 550. Chris, thanks for this. We'll see you in a couple of hours on the show.
In a couple hours. Chris
Brown, Bills Insider from BuffaloBills.com. I'm John Murphy. Thanks for joining us for our Bills Monday Morning Breakdown.